is Michael. I have been with Evolve for almost right at a year now, and yeah, went through the boot camp and uh, working here now, doing another boot camp actually. So or another Evolve boot camp. So I'm really happy to be able to do this webinar and hopefully answer some questions and point some people in the right direction if they're a little lost in the search or journey. So
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you. I'm sure you have a lot of knowledge to share. So before you started your cybersecurity journey, what were you doing for your career? I know you were an auto mechanic, but if you could talk about your career before joining the industry, that would be great.
yeah, before I started in cyber or even looked into cybersecurity, I actually owned my own mechanic shop, owned and operated. It was just me, so not like a big big thing, just my own little company. I started when I was 18, I believe. I grew up working on cars with family, and it was just the obvious path in my mind at the time. I love cars, so it was an easy choice for me. And it just kind of branched into a whole business slash career at the time, and grew faster than I thought it would. And it was amazing until it wasn't. But we can talk about that more in a further section. But yeah.
So it's interesting that you were in that industry for so long, and then you decided to, kind of recently switch over to this industry. So I want to talk about a little bit about what, why you wanted to go to cybersecurity. What made you decide to switch from, cars to cybersecurity? It's kind of a completely different industry. So what was that thought process like?
Yeah, the reason I wanted to switch from mechanic work or automotive mechanics to cybersecurity is I've always had a passion for computers and learning about tech in general. I never really knew about cybersecurity, so it was kind of a new thing. But I got to the point to where my current job was, in my mind, it was getting more and more temporary. Physically, it wasn't, working out. It was all very demanding, like on my body, and just wasn't doing well. I had a work accident in the middle of the pandemic that actually cut me out of work for like 3 months, and all I could do was sit at home and not do much. So I spent that time looking more into the tech industry. I landed really hard on coding and programming, like I feel like a lot of people do. And I looked a little into it, did some Code Academy stuff, and it was all right. It didn't grab my attention. And then I ran across one video where somebody was talking about cybersecurity, and I don't even remember what it was. I wish I did, but it was just like an immediate hook of like, oh, this is where I want to go. This is everything about it's amazing. And then I did a ton of research on how to get into the industry. Watched tons of videos about like people's day to day. Actually, I watched tons of people that go through their normal job and what the routines are. But as we all know now, cyber is infinitely massive. So there's hundreds of job paths, if not thousands. So, but yeah, tons of research that way, and then actually made an Excel sheet of every cybersecurity boot camp. And no matter how many times I did it, Evolve actually always came out on top between a mixture of like price and reviews and like what was provided. So
I love hearing you talk about your Excel spreadsheet and how you did tons of research and then came to settle on us. That's awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so I do want to talk about what you do now. So talk about, if you could talk a little bit about what your job title is, and what your day-to-day looks like.
So right now, my job title is Associate Security Engineer with Evolve. And my day-to-day is penetration testings, internal and external, vulnerability scanning, remediation testings, things like that. So more on the red team side. When people start thinking about whether red team or blue team, it's a lot of fun. It was definitely a path I had my eye on from the beginning. So
That's awesome. That's where it's led you. And we've talked about what you were doing before, what you do now, but I'm interested a little bit in the transition itself. Like, what were you feeling during that transition? How was it for you? Because I know it can be pretty intimidating coming from an industry when you've been in for so long, coming to this industry where you have no experience whatsoever. So
yeah, absolutely. So the experience transitioning from mechanic to cybersecurity was a lot. But it was, like I said, it very quickly became an obsession, and it became so fun. But it obviously started with starting the boot camp, and before I started, I did a lot of research on what is required for cybersecurity. I did the fundamentals, the free fundamentals boot camp, actually before I even signed up for the boot camp, to see if I would like it. But I watched so many videos, did so many training videos, and like Udemy, like little small classes on networking. I did Try Hack Me, some of their like entry level paths that they have that train you on networking and other cybersecurity type deals, but in like a fun gamified way, in my opinion. So that was all before Endearing, and then I started the boot camp, and obviously had a fantastic time at the boot camp. I loved it. I tried to always like offer up to share my screen and and communicate through that, because I do have a I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but I do have a hard time learning if I'm just reading things, so it doesn't stick very well, which was always pretty daunting when I planned on switching careers. Like I purposely was doing something that I just knew how to do as a kid, and it was scary with the thought of transitioning into something that you just know nothing about. Um, but I think one Evolve makes it super easy, but cybersecurity, there's so many outside places where you can gather information pretty quickly. Um, and I think if you have a passion for it, you'll know pretty quickly. And if you do, then I think learning it just comes along. And then the material in the boot camp is amazing, and it's super digestible. So I would say, like a stepping stone wise, I started like just pure research, then did the boot camp while also doing some outside stuff just as fun. And then I was always researching. If I refused to ask people a lot of times for things, I would always just try to find it myself before I did anything. So I think learning how to research, but also if you love research, that I feel like that's the majority of cybersecurity, is just becoming a professional Googler. So I would say the only hurdle I had to get over was the time, was structuring my time with a full-time job, which I'm sure most people are going to do. But it only being a couple hours a night, it was, I just planning that in was actually the one of the hardest things. But once I got into it, and like it actually became a part of my schedule, it went by so fast, to where at the end of the boot camp, it was just like, once it stopped, I was like, what am I going to do with all this free time I have?
yes, and I feel like you had this drive and determination for really pursuing this industry, and I think that's so important. Because I also think it's reassuring that you say that learning a new skill or a new industry can be overwhelming, but you were able to do it, and with the help of
Mhm.
Evolve and the community, you really put your mind to it, and look at you now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's the truth. It's looking at it, it seems so daunting and overwhelming, and you feel like it's not achievable. But it was 6 months, and like my entire life changed. So it was a crazy experience, but yeah, definitely doable.
That's awesome. And we do have some questions coming in. Looks like some are from Drew Sala. And so he wants to know, what is your favorite part of your job now?
Honestly, well, there's a couple, but but one of them is mainly just everything feels well, it doesn't feel like I'm working, which is terrible because I do find myself at like 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning still sitting here at my computer. And then I'm just like, oh, I have to eat food because I have to stop working. Um, so
Right.
it's yeah, it's definitely addicting. It feels like I tell everybody it just feels like I play games all day. Like if you like video games, I feel like I play video games all day. And more of like the fun aspect, but mainly, honestly, my favorite part about my job and like this industry too is the people. Like everybody,
Mm,
Colleen, but
yeah.
everybody here at Evolve is some of the like the greatest people in the world, and make working around so fun, and everybody's available, and but yeah, just everybody here, but also in the industry. Like I haven't talked to anybody in the cybersecurity industry as a whole that has been like standoffish or rude or whatever. Everybody's
Mhm.
always willing to help. And outside of the actual day to day of my job role, I would say that's probably like the highlight of everything. Is it's super inclusive.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think it just makes it that much more enjoyable, like you're
Yeah.
saying. So we have some more questions coming in. So this is from Eugene. Coming from a non-IT background, did you find learning the technical aspects of pen testing a hurdle? And if so, how did you overcome that?
As far as it being a hurdle, it definitely was. I always had like from my previous role, I always had the mindset of, if it's broke, how do I fix it? And but also to do that, I had to figure out how they broke. Um, and how I could break them, and that it kind of transitioned into this, but it was more of just pure research. Like I love learning. I like looking into things and figuring out how things operate and whatever. So when I got into trying boxes and like on Try Hack Me or Hack the Box, or doing the labs uh, in Cyber Lab for the boot camp, I the first couple I did were terrifying because it was just all new. I'd never touched them before. I'd never done anything related to them. But I found myself doing exactly what I did with mechanic work, which was, if for half a second I didn't know it, I just pulled up Google and was researching, and I very quickly got to where, like, if I was stuck on something, it would take a minute or two to find an answer on Google, and then I realized that, oh, that's what you're supposed to do with these. They just want to make sure you can research. So I think, in as far as a hurdle with getting into pen testing and everything, is trying to navigate how to find the answers. Like if you can find the answers, I don't think it's I don't think it's as scary as a lot of people put it out there. I have an absolute terrible memory, but I do have like 700 bookmarks. I think like 530. I just counted them actually a couple of weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah, um, tons of bookmarks, tons of notes. Obviously, you retain things over time, but honestly, the biggest hurdle is figuring out how to research to find the answer. And once it clicks, and once you figure out like the little words to type in to get what you want, it becomes exponentially easier and more fun at the end of the day, which is obviously going to make it a lot better as a career. So
Right. And you mentioned something that you were using a skill that you had in your mechanic job, and something that you were using now. And we actually had a question saying that, are there any skills that you learned in your former career that helped you in your current position? So anything else besides Googling or anything like that that has helped you?
like more communication than anything. Like I'm a huge introverted person. I don't talk to very many people. And it's like it's a lot to communicate with people and talk to people. So when I had my old job, it was like I had to. And now the big running joke is, one of my passions is social engineering, because I had to learn as a kid how to lie to people to get them to buy what I wanted them to. So So yeah, communication is huge. Now it comes into like communicating with team members and also clients is massive. So getting over the hurdle of communicating with people is amazing. And actually that is one thing that I went through my boot camp and just kind of talked in my group. And at the end, I kind of like during the boot camps, you have a nonprofit project at the very end. And I had to like the very last day of class, I was like, nobody's here is gonna see me ever again. I'm getting over my stage fright of talking to people in big crowds, and I'm going to present the project. And I think that very quickly spiraled into this whole career that I have, but it pushed me over the thing of talking to clients about technical things. So yeah, there's a long-winded way to just say if you can communicate with people, it's amazing.
No, I love that. That's awesome to hear that you wanted to challenge yourself and you were pushing yourself. You're like, you know what? I am going to present this. And then it's helped you so much in your career now. That's an amazing story. We have so many questions coming in. This is awesome. Besides, so after you did the boot camp, have you completed any other certifications to get you the job that you have, or just have you completed any certifications along the way that you would recommend?
So I did complete the Security Plus right after the boot camp. I actually kept pushing it off and almost let it lapse, and like got an email the day before it was due, and they're like, "Are you ready for your certification?" Like, uh-oh, I forgot. So I did do the Security Plus. I don't have any other certifications right now, but I actually am in the process of getting the OSCP certification through doing the actual Evolve OSCP bootcamp. So, and
That's a big one.
Yeah, it's going to be a minute, but I would say certifications help you amazingly to get past HR. But I think the real goal, or what people want to see, is like you have the skills through all the channels I follow and read and whatever. So many people I hear say that the certification is you can pass a test, but can you actually implement it? And I think that is one thing I loved so much about going through the boot camp, is it wasn't stressed on a certification. It was more of practical, hands-on, do these labs. This is how it works. Going in with that type of understanding, one will relieve some pressure on like stressing about getting certifications. But I think if you just leave yourself open to practicing what you want to do, if you want to do like threat intelligence, practicing that, or penetration testing, practicing that, and then the certification will kind of fall after it. But I don't think obviously some people require it, but I think really the hands-on skills are way more important than the actual certification in the beginning. So
I agree. And someone asked which OSCP bootcamp. He is in Evolve Academy's OSCP bootcamp. So check that out if you're interested. We had another question come in from Bella, and you might have answered this a little bit, but you can just elaborate on it. But how long did it take you to be somewhat proficient in your field? What's an average amount of hours of study that were required to gain this proficiency? If you could talk a little bit about that.
So to become proficient in, I guess, anything in cybersecurity, it's so hard to answer because everything changes so fast, and it's like every day there's something new. So it's hard to say that you'll be like proficient in one thing, but it has taken quite some time. It doesn't. There's so many paths, even in penetration testing, that is so vast that it's hard to dive into everything, even in several years. It just, unfortunately, that's why people pick like things to perfect, like one lane. But I would say if you want to feel proficient, especially with like penetration testing, I would absolutely do as many boxes as you can on Hack the Box, try Hack Me. In the boot camp itself, there's tons and tons of fantastic boxes to play around with, and they're not yours, so you can break them, and then all you gotta do is reset them, and you don't have to worry about it. But to be honest, I don't think proficiency has even come to me yet. it's so vast, but I do feel proficient-ish in like network pen testing, but internal pen testing, I feel comfortable, but not proficient because there's hundreds and hundreds of avenues within it. It's hard to feel like 100% of anything. So I hope that answered your question and didn't scare you off because but it's amazing nonetheless. I think if I knew anything, I would I would get bored. And I think that's why I love this career so much, is because like every day I'm like, oh, I know this. No, I don't. Never mind. This changed yesterday. So it's amazing.
You're always learning something new.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more question here. So this is from Jason Frank. Before you got into the industry, what did you envision a career in this industry would be like? And how did that match up against reality? Really good question.
That actually is a fantastic question because I'm sure everybody will have the same experience as I did. I actually started with zero expectations. I didn't even know cybersecurity was a term until 2 months before I started the boot camp. So I went in with no expectation of what I wanted to do. And then throughout the boot camp, when it started, I started to lean more into blue team, and it seemed more obtainable. And I then started looking at like GRC because it just seemed interesting. And then also it changed so many times. And then it all kind of split off when I started doing more of the hack the box, try hack me, pen testing practice boxes. And I knew that was going to be an end goal of mine as soon as I started them, because it was, like I said, it was like playing a game every day. So it didn't feel like I was doing anything, like a job or whatever. So I knew I wanted it to be my end goal. I didn't set out for it to be immediate. I figured I would have to go through the blue team channel, or do like internships or whatever to be able to do that. But I would say, I mean, you can do whatever you want or whatever, but I still have friends that I went through the boot camp with that they were dead set on doing blue team from day one, and they have a blue team job now and they love it. They're the happiest person in the world. So it just depends. I had my heart set on so many career paths through the boot camp, and then they changed just as fast until I found this one, and it hasn't. But yeah, I think depending on the person, you can have one and stick to it, or you can change 100 times like I did until you get stuck on the one that makes you lose sleep at night because you're too addicted to it.
I mean, that's just awesome. And Micheal, I'm so glad that you've been able to find this path, this career path. But yeah, Micheal, anything else that you want to share with us? If there's any final remarks?
Yeah. So final thoughts on everything is, I mean, if you're interested in a career and like you're doing something completely, I'm saying completely different, no matter what it is, just jump into it. Like if you've done some research and you feel like you have a pull to it, then there's no better time and there's no better company. Like I told Colleen right before this call, everybody I get face to face with, I tell them like Evolve changed my life. Like it was, I went from a job in a place where people don't really get out of my area. I'm in Tennessee. It's a small, rural town. It's all like labor jobs and things like that. Like people around me don't have careers like this. So I kind of had that mindset of, I'm going to have a labor job forever. So, it was a life-changing experience. And I come from a place of feeling like there was no other option. Like there was no other path for me. So if you're in that, if you have that feeling, and just feel like it's not obtainable, as long as you're willing to research and learn and go through it and, pick a path that you love, it's 100% obtainable. And I would say just jump into it and and get ready for like one of the craziest life changes of all time, because it's one of the happiest things that I've ever done in my life, and it's fantastic. So if you want to do it, then I honestly wouldn't hesitate to to get started, because it's an amazing time to do so, and so many opportunities out there.
Awesome. Well, it's super inspiring. And thanks so much, Michael, for taking the time to be with us today. And thank you to our attendees. You guys asked great questions. So we're excited to see you back here next Friday to learn about another one of our alums' journeys.